Joining us now with more is the Texas Senator himself, Ted Cruz. I love that line. I'm not going to apologize for thoughts or prayers, nor will you apologize for the right of the people to keep and bear arms and protect themselves and their families, Senator. Thank you for standing up for our Constitution and the Second Amendment, because apparently many are not tonight, and Joe Biden's threatening executive action.
Well, Sean, that's exactly right. And the modern day left is more and more extreme. They have this bizarre antipathy to God and to prayers. So anytime, look, all of us have had people who've lost loved ones. And then the first thing you do when someone has lost a loved one is you reach out and say, hey, I'm lifting you up in prayer. I'm praying for you, your family. I know you're hurting, and may God's peace be with you. And the left treats that like, how dare you believe there's an omnipotent God who could actually love you and care for you. But more broadly than that, we see this cynical pattern whenever there is a mass murder. And I got to say, we have had way too many of these mass murders. Look, I've represented Texas in the Senate for 9 years now. I have been Santa Fe High School. Santa Fe is less than an hour away from my home. I was down in Santa Fe High School within an hour of that shooting. It was horrific. The crazed madman who murdered those kids. El Paso, the crazed, racist bigot who murdered the people at that Walmart. I was there for that. Dallas, when 5 police officers were murdered by a radical leftist. I was there for that. And I got to tell you, Sutherland Springs, the worst church shooting in U.S. history, small town outside of San Antonio. I was there the day after the shooting in that sanctuary. I saw with my own eyes the blood and shattered glass and the agony and the incredible love of that community. There have been too damn many of these, and we need to stop them. But the Democrats' proposal every time is always the same, which is take away guns from law-abiding citizens. That is their political agenda every single day. It doesn't work. It doesn't reduce crime. And in fact, it makes it worse because it disarms the potential victims and makes them vulnerable to criminals. If you want to stop them, the way to do it, what works is you target the bad guys. You go after violent criminals. You go after felons. You go after fugitives. You go after those with serious mental illness. You stop them from getting guns. And when they try to illegally buy a firearm, you lock them up and put them in jail. And back in 2013, I introduced legislation. It's called the Grassley-Cruz legislation. It targeted the bad guys. It directed the Department of Justice to prosecute felons and fugitives who try to illegally buy guns. The Democrats in 2013 filibustered Grassley-Cruz. We got 52 votes on the floor of the Senate, a Democratic Senate. 9 Democrats voted for it. So it was the most bipartisan support of any of the comprehensive legislation. And yet Harry Reid and the Democrats, Chuck Schumer and the rest of the liberals filibustered it, demanded 60 votes. It didn't pass. I'll tell you, Sean, if Grassley-Cruz had passed, there's a very good chance Sutherland Springs never would have happened, because the criminal who had committed a felony, who was ineligible to buy guns, the Obama Air Force never reported his conviction to the background database. And when he tried to illegally buy the gun, his conviction wasn't there. He was allowed to buy the gun, and he murdered those people. If Grassley-Cruz had passed, they would have prosecuted him, they would have put him in jail, and he would have been in a jail cell instead of in that beautiful sanctuary.
Aren't these the same Democrats all summer long when we were watching bricks and rocks and bottles and frozen water bottles and Molotov cocktails and nearly 3,000 cops injured, 30 people killed? Let's see, arson, looting, the taking over of police precincts, burning them to the ground, allowing city blocks to be taken over, autonomous zones, Chaz, Chop, Summer of Love, spaghetti potluck dinner zones.
Yep.
Aren't they the same ones that were telling us every day that, well, these are not riots, these are peaceful protests? That's what I remember from last summer.
No, I think that's exactly right. And these are rich liberals who have their own security details, who say that you shouldn't be able to protect your own family. You know, we had a hearing in the Senate Judiciary Committee where we heard testimony that in 2020, the rate of gun buying went up dramatically, and it went up in particular among minority communities, among African Americans, among Hispanics, among Asian Americans. And one of the questions I asked at the hearing, I said, look, how much did the riots of 2020, the Antifa, the Black Lives Matter riots that were burning our cities, that were looting stores, that were murdering police officers, how much did that contribute? And I'll tell you, the witness testimony was quite a bit. I can tell you in Houston, I remember when these riots were happening, there were stories about how violent mobs were to come into the suburbs and raid people's homes. And I got to tell you, in Houston, that would not work out well, because in Texas, a whole lot of the homes, people believe in the right to keep and bear arms. And if you come after their families, you're going to meet the business end of a firearm. And that is a fundamental right protected in the Bill of Rights. Do you know every year, Sean, firearms are used in a defensive situation to stop a criminal about 1 million times a year. And the Democrats, they want to take that away, which endangers you and your family, and they oppose targeting the bad guys and the criminals. You want to stop this gun violence? Go after the bad guys. That's what works, and protect the Second Amendment.
It's amazing how Joe Biden thinks he can bypass Congress again. We'll be following that. Constitutionally, he doesn't have the authority. Senator, great job today. Thank you.